There is a man you probably know. Maybe it is your neighbor, your uncle, or someone you scrolled past on social media. He did not become wealthy in his 20s. He did not go viral. He did not land the dream job right out of college. And for a long time, the world looked at him like he was falling behind. But then, somewhere in his 40s, 50s, or even 60s, something shifted. Quietly, steadily, he started winning. Not in a loud way. In the kind of way that makes you stop and think, where did that come from? This video is about those men, the late bloomers, the slow burners, and the hidden psychology that makes them almost unstoppable once they finally get going. If you have ever felt like you were running out of time, or like the world passed you by, stay with me. Because what you are about to hear might completely change the way you see yourself. The first thing you need to understand is that late success is not an accident. It is not luck. It is not just timing. There is a very specific psychological blueprint that men who succeed late in life tend to share. Researchers, psychologists, and life historians have studied these men for decades, and the patterns are clear, consistent, and honestly, kind of breathtaking. Let's start with the most important one. Men who succeed late have what psychologists call a tolerance for delayed gratification at an unusually high level. Now, you have heard of delayed gratification before. The marshmallow test. Wait now, get more later. But the version these men carry is something far more intense. It is not just waiting for a reward. It is continuing to work, build, and invest in yourself during years when there is no visible payoff. No applause. No recognition. Nothing but the quiet belief that what you are doing matters. Most people cannot do that. The world rewards speed. Social media celebrates young founders and overnight success stories. So when a man keeps going in his 40s with nothing to show for it yet, most people around him start to question his choices. Some of them tell him to be realistic. Some of them walk away. And here is where the psychology splits the room. The men who eventually succeed late do something that sounds simple, but is psychologically brutal. They stop needing external validation to keep going. That is the real unlock. Not a new strategy, not a smarter plan. It is the internal rewiring that happens when a man decides, often quietly and without announcement, that his sense of worth and direction will no longer depend on whether other people believe in him. Right now, Colonel Harlan Sanders was rejected over 1,000 times before KFC took off. He was in his 60s. Charles Darwin published his theory of evolution at 50. Vera Wang did not design her first dress until she was 40. And before you say those are exceptions, understand that the psychology behind them is not rare. The willingness to keep building in the dark, that is rarer. But the potential to do it exists in far more men than we talk about. Here is the second piece of the psychological blueprint. Men who succeed late tend to have gone through what researchers sometimes call productive suffering. This is different from just having a hard life. Everybody has hard times. Productive suffering is when a man takes the pain, the failures, the humiliations, and the slow years, and instead of letting them shrink him, he lets them teach him. This is not a motivational cliche. There is real neuroscience behind it. The brain physically reorganizes itself around repeated challenges. The prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for long-term planning, emotional regulation, and complex decision-making, actually strengthens with age when a person has been consistently navigating difficulty without giving up. This is why so many Light Sox stories involve men who have failed spectacularly before winning. The failures were not detours. They were the training. Think about what a man knows at 50 that he simply could not have known at 25. He knows what he actually values versus what he thought he should value. He knows which relationships are real and which ones were transactional. He knows his own weaknesses with a level of clarity that younger men rarely have. And he knows how to stay calm in chaos. Because he has been through chaos before, and he is still standing. That emotional intelligence, that hard-won self-awareness, it is not a consolation prize for getting started late. It is a competitive advantage. The third psychological trait is what I want to call purposeful obsession. Not obsession in the unhealthy, chaotic sense, but the quiet, focused, almost monk-like devotion to one thing that men who succeed late tend to develop. While younger men are often spreading their energy across a dozen directions, testing identities and chasing trends, the late bloomer has usually gone through enough failure and enough self-reflection to know exactly what he is built for. And when a man in his 50s locks in on that one thing with the full weight of his experience, his patience, and his discipline behind it, the output can be extraordinary. There is a compounding effect that happens when skill, focus, and time all converge. It is the same reason that the most respected voices in almost every field tend to be older. Not because youth is irrelevant, but because depth takes time to develop. Now here is something that does not get talked about enough. Men who succeed late almost always have had at least one person, just one, who believed in them during the quiet years. A wife, a mentor, an old friend who did not flinch when everyone else was skeptical. Psychology research consistently shows that belief from even a single trusted source can sustain motivation across years of difficulty. It is not about cheerleading. It is about witnessing. Someone seeing you and saying, "I know what you are working toward. Keep going." If you have that person in your life, protect that relationship with everything you have. And if you are that person for someone else right now, do not underestimate what your quiet belief means to them. It may be carrying them through the hardest part. There is also a shift in relationship with time itself that separates late bloomers from men who give up. Most people treat time as an enemy after a certain age. There is this brutal cultural narrative that says if you have not made it by 35, the window is closing. If you have not made it by 45, the window is closed. That narrative is not just wrong. It is psychologically destructive. And men who succeed late have almost universally found a way to reject it. They stop measuring their life against a timeline that was designed for someone else. Instead, they start operating on what I would describe as a craftsman's relationship with time. A craftsman does not rush the work because someone else finished faster. He focuses on quality, on depth, on getting it right. And he trusts that the right result, delivered at the right level of excellence, will matter regardless of when it arrives. That mindset shift, from racing to refining, is often the final psychological piece that unlocks late success. Because once a man stops apologizing for his timeline, he frees up an enormous amount of mental energy that was previously being consumed by shame and comparison. And that energy goes back into the work. Let me say something directly to you, if you are watching this and feeling behind. The fact that you are still thinking about your goals, still searching for answers, still watching content like this because something inside you has not given up, that is not weakness. That is evidence of something. That is the psychology of a man who has not yet had his moment, but who has not quit. Either the world celebrates the 22-year-old who made $1 million and forgets to mention that most of them burn out, pivot, or disappear within a decade. The man who builds slowly, deliberately, and with the full weight of his life experience behind him often builds something that lasts, something real, something that actually means something. There is a Japanese concept called ikigai. It roughly translates to a reason for being, the sweet spot, where what you are good at, what you love, what the world needs, and what you can be paid for all intersect. Research on ikigai shows that many people do not find that intersection until midlife or later. Not because they were slow, but because it takes that much life, that much experience, that much honest self-examination to actually see it clearly. Men who succeed late are often men who found their ikigai after the noise of early adulthood settled. After the ego chasing, the performance, the trying to be what other people expected, they found out who they actually were. And then they went to work as that person. And that is when everything changed. If this video connected with something in you that made you think differently about where you are right now or where you are still going, please subscribe to this channel. We make videos here about psychology, human behavior, and the real science of how people grow, struggle, and ultimately succeed. Hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you do not miss what we have coming next. Now here's the question I want to leave you with. I genuinely want to hear your answer in the comments below. Think about the men you know or the stories you have heard of people who succeeded later than expected. What do you think is the single biggest reason most people give up before they ever reach their breakthrough? Drop your answer down below. I read every comment, and this conversation matters.